So even if it is a nominal fee to split the transaction into 4 installments with Zilch, we saw customers very happily moving away from brands that they'd shopped with historically for months and months, if not years and years, because they were able to get the flexible payment options by going with a fee-free merchant through Zilch.
You're listening to the Affiliate Marketing Podcast, powered by Advertise, ultimate destination for affiliate program news, insights, growth opportunities, partnerships, and affiliate program strategy. Welcome back to the Affiliate Marketing Podcast with me, your host, Leanne Johnston. And today we are deep diving into a publisher that I've been quite interested in for quite a while called Zilch. And I'm going to introduce you to Phil Thompson, who's joining me on the podcast this week in just a second. But the reason why I'm so excited to have Phil on the podcast this week is because we're going to be really talking about what UK consumers are doing with brands, because they've got an immense amount of data that comes through their platform. And Phil's going to deep dive into some of the behaviors and things that they're seeing and experiencing with audiences that you might not know just working in your own brand. So Phil, welcome onto the podcast this week. It's a pleasure to have you here. Say hello to our audience and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do at Zilch.
Thank you, Leanne. So I'm Phil Thompson. I'm Partnerships Manager over here at Zilch, making me feel slightly old here. I've been working in partnerships for about 15 years now, starting off more consumer partnerships, if you will, doing everything from on-pack promotions, loyalty schemes, gift cards, you name it. I think in affiliate specifically, I've been in the industry for about 5 years now, I believe it was, and seemingly like a fairly common occurrence. I think I almost fell into the affiliate world, picking up when I was back at a employee benefit provider. And yeah, I've been with Zilch for coming up to 2 years now. It's a really exciting place to be. We're now 5 million customers strong, and we're growing by 70,000 customers every single month. And these are Zilch customers. These aren't button on checkout and converted customers. These are our own customers that we go out and we will go through various different acquisition channels to get them on board. But ultimately, they are a Zilch customer first. And what we're able to do with our customers through what we call our ad subsidized payments network, or Aspen for short, is we're able to give these customers the best of both worlds, if you will. So if they want to make a purchase with a brand, they can do that as a pay in one or a debit transaction using their Zilch debit card. They're then able to earn rewards, like similar to a cashback, if you will, but it's instantaneous. You make the transaction, the rewards are added to your Zilch wallet. And then the other side to the coin is that we also provide a credit function. And this is where the Aspen payment network comes in, that rather than it being the customer who is financing that cost of credit through transaction fees, late fees, interest, and all that sort of thing, we're using the commissions that the advertisers are paying us for all the purchases that our customers make to offset that cost of credit. The idea being that last year in the UK, there was £15 billion worth of interest and other sort of lending associated fees. The idea with Zilch is that we get that 15 billion down to zero, or say it with me, Leanne, Zilch. Exactly, thank you. And ultimately, that's the vision, is how we do that. And using the merchant relationships we have, we're helping eliminate that high cost of consumer credit.
Yeah, and I love that because your founder is actually South African, and so am I. And it's really a unique proposition in terms of helping customers to get online, because not so much here in the UK, but rest of the world. And the concept behind Zilch is so interesting as well for me, because there's a lot of unbanked people that don't get access to credit cards, and therefore they don't get access to online e-commerce. They don't get access to offers. They're very much still, having to purchase products at full price and not with any kind of like discounting. So it's very interesting to me what the business has built. But the reason why we're getting you on the podcast is obviously to dig deeper into some of that data that you see. So you've got over, I think, 5 million customers just here in the UK. Guys, if you're tuning in this week from the US and other, regions, just remember that everything that we're talking about in this particular episode is specific to UK target audiences. So if you've got UK customers, this is going to be quite interesting for you. So let's start off with talking about some of the goldmine of data that you are seeing on your platform in terms of how UK consumers are interacting with brands. What are some of the kind of like aha moments that you've had working at Zilch and actually managing the partnerships team and the ad campaigns that you run within your platform that maybe we all assume are a certain way, but you've seen, hang on a minute, it really isn't like that. Can you share some of those like tidbits with us?
I won't go into the full nitty gritty, if you will. One of the things that I found most interesting is, I think particularly looking back to, I know we're keeping it fairly time agnostic, but we've just come out of peak going into Q1 now. And I think in the UK particularly, there was a lot of customers almost maybe being a little bit cautious with what they're spending and how they're spending. And I think the overwhelming thing that we found is that with our customers within Zilch, they were very keen to spend, but ultimately they wanted to be spending where it was within their benefit. So we were able to quite effectively funnel a lot of GMV, a lot of transactions away from perhaps where a customer would traditionally be spending because they have that loyalty to that brand. Because in these, and I sound like a politician here, in these uncertain times, I think ultimately people were looking for where the best value was. For us to put in front of a customer a brand that does roughly the same things as their favorite, where we can see that they shop consistently, we can say to them, well, hold on, if you shop here instead, you'd be able to split the payment interest-free for no fee, no late fees, all the good stuff that Zilch brings. And it was quite an effective way to drive that traffic away from the traditional brands who weren't helping the customers with the interest-free credit by working with Zilch. So I think that was the thing that got us really in the back end of last year, was that the effectiveness of price sensitivity. So even if it is a nominal fee to split the transaction into 4 installments with Zilch, we saw customers very happily moving away from brands that they'd shopped with historically for months and months, if not years and years, because they were able to get the flexible payment options by going with a fee-free merchant through Zilch.
Okay, so it feels relevant to bring up attribution and tracking now, because we've had quite a rough start to the year with a lot of the news around Honey, PayPal and browser extensions and discounting and offers and bonus codes. If what you're saying is true, customers in the UK specifically are still looking for a bargain, right? And they still want to be able to actually maximize how they spend their money and how much it costs them to spend that money. So if that's the case, how do brands structure their affiliate programs now to work with partners that are inclusive like you? So how do clients typically come to work with you?
The wonderful thing with Zilch is that unlike sort of other similar players in the space, we work as a now physical as well, but predominantly a digital Visa card. There's no integration needed, no extra work, no working with your PSP to implement a button at checkout or whatever it might be. It quite literally runs the Visa rails. The traditional setup we have is that a brand would come to us, or we would reach out to a brand. We would agree the terms so that we could offset the consumer credit and enable the brand to operate on a fee-free basis, as we would call it. And then where, again, we're fairly uniquely placed within the market, like we work with affiliate cookie tracking, that's how we're born. We absolutely love it. However, I think the thing that we've maybe found, and Leanne, I think it was an APMA session that we were both at the back end of last year. I can't remember who said it, but it resonated with me. The fact that the affiliate channel is the only channel that you almost negotiate once the transaction's happened. You get the sale, it goes through into the network. You then have the opportunity to say, no, yes, no, yes, no. And again, there's obviously lots of reasons above my head that happens, but in certain instances, that maybe isn't always the most fair and reasonable way to do it. Within Zilch, we have that full end-to-end journey of working. We can offer brands a way that we can work through cookie tracking, absolutely. But then we can also almost fill in those gaps where cross-device, consent, or whatever it might be, may leave a few holes. We're able to deliver that picture of what Zilch is doing, why we're doing it. And we do that through something called intelligent commerce. I don't know if you remember, Leanne, you had to endure me on stage for quite a while at our summit last year. But this is something that we announced. We've been working on it with a few brands. We've started going a lot more all in on this. This is the way that we truly believe is almost the future for working with us. Opportunities to tap in to that goldmine of data, as you called it.
So for people listening in, can you just explain what intelligent commerce is? Because I think it's quite important for them to understand.
Absolutely, of course. So intelligent commerce is the way of working with Zilch, where we will typically look to do it as much as we can through the affiliate network, so that we include to make the lift for the brands as small as possible. But the idea would be is that it is tracking through almost the merchant ID, not an AWIN mid, but the payment processor mid, if you will. Because with Zilch, again, we've got that customer coming into the app, interacting with the app, then going on to purchase. We see that full end-to-end journey. So it's almost using the card data to fill in any gaps, if you will, from where traditionally cookie tracking would let us down. To incentivize brands, again, we use it in a case that Zilch will fund advertising for the brand on the strength of the CPA. But we're trying to make it a position for a brand where it becomes very scalable. You know that on a monthly basis, we're able to forecast going forward. Typically, this is where we see you're able to go. And then from the back of that, let's say the use case is proven, we're able to supercharge it further by increasing the rate, funding more marketing, ultimately with the ambition of making Zilch its own channel for your digital marketers.
Okay, there's quite a lot in there to unpack for people, but essentially what I'm hearing is that when you partner with a fintech partner like Zilch, you've got the option as the affiliate manager to really explore how you want Zilch to help you bring customers. Now, there's a huge funnel. There's net new customers, but there's also customers purchasing with your competitors through peak periods. So you could actually partner with Zilch through seasonal periods when you've got like really big offers, really big products that you want to be shifting. Maybe when you're going on a direct price comparison with your competitors. How many times do you like work with clients on sporadic campaigns to just kind of plug into one section of the funnel? And with the card linked offers, you've got a lot of data that you can use to pull these campaigns together and build them. How many clients that you work with are actually using and tapping into all of that data?
If they are working with us on intelligent commerce, that is the cornerstone of it. It is utilized as first party data. That's ultimately what we leave up to the brand, depending on what their KPIs are. But if it is, strictly speaking, they want to speak to new customers who are in Manchester, Leeds and Glasgow, for example, we not only have that from a postcode perspective, but we can also look at that from a purchase history. We can map out where they're spending, who they're spending with. And obviously that's one of the valuable pieces, you touched on it there, is that we get a full picture of what the customer is doing outside out just shopping at that merchant. So be that in-store or online, we can tell brands that you have a cohort of customers here. They do their weekly shop with you, for example. And by many metrics, you would say, hold on, that's my customer. Fantastic. They shop with us regularly. And let's say you have 1 million of those customers who are shopping regularly and £3 million going through every week. At the same time, they're also spending £9 million with other similar retailers. That's one of the benefits that we're finding is we can funnel that spend with competitors back into there. So that existing customer becomes even more valuable.
So hence intelligent commerce kind of says what it does in the tin. All right. So what kind of different patterns are you seeing emerge across different age groups and spending categories? What's been surprising you recently? And let's look at this year, not what happened last year, but are there any big trends that are coming up that affiliate managers that run e-commerce programs could tap into here?
So beginning of this year, I think it's almost been a little bit more of the same from last year. We're coming into obviously January, historically very tight for customers. What we are seeing is that across sort of age groups, it's remaining fairly consistent. We're not seeing one age group outstripping the others. And I think Zilch, particularly as a publisher, what I would suggest is at the beginning, we saw it's a fintech app, if you will, right? Lots of millennial Gen Z sort of thing, customers getting on board. But increasingly, we are seeing customers from across the sort of demographical spectrum coming onboarding with Zilch and using Zilch as maybe not their primary payment card, but they are using it as a way to access affordable credit.
The thing is as well is that the cost of living has increased here in the UK. Tools like this actually help consumers to manage their budgets, manage their spend, reduce their banking fees, their interest costs. And those little incremental margins are the bits that e-commerce brands can really tap into and start being intelligent in terms of when they place their brand in front of a customer. I think it's quite interesting that you've gone from a Gen Z to Gen X, whatever it is, age group, because it means that everybody's looking for value. It's not just like new customers, existing customers, everybody's looking for value right now, especially here in the UK. So understanding where your customer is in their journey, understanding where they spend and where else they spend outside of just your ecosystem is an incredibly interesting data set that you can tap into for your affiliate program. Now, let's talk about partner program segmentation and answer engines and zero click, because we were talking about all of those things at the PMA last year too. And I know you've got like an immense amount of experience in the partnerships industry outside of Zilch as well. What do you think is imperative that affiliate managers should be looking at, especially in relation to working with fintech customers like you that have a lot of data, to not panic about the whole zero click and AI shopping debate?
Yeah, as you say, there are lots of emerging technologies and pieces like that. But ultimately, I think rather than trying to go all in one way or the other, you would argue that right now it's a time for test and learn almost. As we are going into, in some instances, a truly sort of clickless age. But the fact of the matter is that there are still clicks coming through on programs. Leanne, I know a range of advertisers that you manage through Advertise and can see just the weight of clicks is almost increasing every single year. So I think for me, again, I'm very much publisher side, but I think it's almost a case of the need for diversification is arguably paramount now because, there are lots of new things coming in. So where you are able to test and learn, and rather than just going last year, these publishers, X, Y, and Z, drove all of my volume. Fantastic. They can keep doing that. Amazing. That's great news. But there are also lots of new players coming into the market where we're testing them and learning and using those learnings across everything you're doing. probably a good idea.
The thing for me is like the standard publisher program segmentation changes year on year. And we've seen that in some of the documentation that PMA and the APMA pulls together on both sides of the pond. And to me, it just feels like this is the year that we go deeper into data, that we actually leverage partners that have more data than just traffic to really grow and to think considerately about where we spend, because it's not just about brand reach anymore. Now it's about being omnipresent and actually being in front of the customer at every touch point, and also before they get to the touch point of spending. So how do you possibly be everywhere all at the same time? Like, you have to leverage your partnerships in order to make that happen, and think about the breakdown of types of publishers that you put into your program to make that happen. Okay, so brass tacks time, because you work with a lot of brands and you help them to maximize their ROI on their earnings because of the data that you have in your platform. What's the single most important strategic shift that brands should make right now, or advertisers should make right now, if they want to work with a platform like yours?
The thing that I find interesting with brands, and a lot of what I see from talking to sort of advertisers and agency managers and even network side, is that a lot of the time it makes sense to you, right? If you're looking back at previous trends and transactions, you're almost driving forward while you're looking in the rearview mirror. You have a very good idea of where you've been, but it almost doesn't let you look forward to where you're going. And while, yeah, I think it's a case of you should definitely be educated and advised by what has happened traditionally, but then it's almost a case of what's in front of you. What's the opportunity? Is there someone who can give you that little bit of extra data that you maybe wouldn't see on? Is it that your customer who's never shopped with you before, do they look exactly like a customer who shops like one of your existing customers?
And in terms of like campaigns that you've run that have been like really successful, what was the one thing that Advertise or Publisher Manager did that helped to make the campaign successful for you? Any one that stands out in your mind?
We've seen a lot of success in the grocery space, for example. What we have found is that with Zilch, the way that we find works really well for brands is if that rather than being a 1 month, turn it on, expect results, like typically it will take a little bit of time to change consumer behavior. So particularly in the grocery space, right? You've got, yes, obviously there is a degree of price sensitivity, but ultimately we're finding that if we are able to target customers based upon their previous behavior at brand X, they've shopped every single week, £100 spend, or probably £120 spend for a grocery shopping now. They've done that historically. They've done that the same. They've not changed. Maybe it's their closest or whatever it might be. By putting in that new customer offer, by putting in the sort of seasonal Valentine's Day coming up, his dine-in for two or something like that, giving them that actual sort of carrot to go and make that change, I think that's something that we're able to get customers to ultimately change. And I'm going around the houses here, but what I'm trying to say is that a 1 week, 1 month campaign maybe doesn't typically move the needle that much. It needs to be sort of over a longer term, because you can go in with best intentions, do something for 1 week or a month, and the wheels will start to turn, but you're not actually seeing that. And that's, I think, where we've seen is that we got to a place of brands that they trust us and they want us to continue what we're doing. And maybe it isn't just new customers we're going, it's in fact the lifetime value of that customer. The new customers drop, but the customers we've already acquired for you are in fact spending more and spending more frequently.
And I love that, because in performance, we are always focused on the traditional thought process is always last click and getting that new customer incrementality, right? But the point is that publishers work across the funnel now. So really leveraging your partners and thinking about where can I get these partners to help me influence sales, help me influence and bring back customers to repeat sales and increase revenue. That is very much part of our everyday lives right now. It's not just last click and first time customer anymore. What I love about what you just shared is that advertisers or performance managers, we need to think more laterally about the promos that we put in front of consumers, because consumers, especially here in the UK, are extremely savvy and they will not change from brand just based on price. Price-led marketing is what I always say is lazy marketing. It's the quick, immediate, reactive type marketing. But what we need to be doing is getting brands to tell their story. And you said it really well with the dine-in for two. So it's Valentine's Day. Everybody's going to be thinking about it. Now you get in front of the customer with a story about cook your loved one a beautiful meal. And that then elicits emotion and response. So I hope that we get to see affiliate managers really doubling down on their campaigns, thinking about long-term strategies to help partners to actually add value. Because with the advent of AI search and products being able to be put in with a price checkout, I think we have to think about what is the value that publishers have for us. And it's not always going to be incremental new sales. We're going to have to think a little bit more laterally about that. From your perspective, and I'm talking now as a publisher, so, you see a lot in the industry, you work across multiple programs, you work across multiple verticals, and you've got a lot of consumer data here in the UK. What's one thing that you would personally love to see affiliate managers doing a little bit better this year, based on everything that we've got going on around us? And this isn't necessarily from Zilch's perspective. This is like you in the market, because you've got a lot of experience as well.
I think openness. And again, it's that willingness to almost test and learn. Like, I know you will have instances where as an advertiser, you've perhaps been burned in the past, and that's almost closes that book maybe from other publisher types, like saying, oh, we tried this, it hasn't worked, which fair enough. It's ultimately your prerogative. But I think it's that sort of willingness to trial and error. That's the way to do it. Maybe it's the romantic in me or whatever you want to call it. But I think, it's just because one thing isn't successful, like,
it doesn't mean the next thing is going to be as well. And I think we do give up on that. A lot of affiliate managers that I speak to, a lot of advertisers that I speak to, or clients that I speak to, they don't keep themselves open because, yes, we've all been burned. Like, campaigns work, some campaigns don't. And even with all the best intentions in the world, you can have the thought process behind it, but something just doesn't click and it doesn't work. The problem with this industry is that you need to be comfortable failing, because if you're not reiterating and you're not tweaking and you're not optimizing, you could end up missing out on really good things. And I've done this in the past, so I want to share a little story now, because, and I'm sure you have too, as you go working into the industry for a lot longer, you start to become more comfortable with failure and managing failure and bouncing back from failure. And especially in fast moving consumer e-commerce branch, things that aren't as considered as SaaS purchases, for example, you've got to be comfortable with making mistakes, and you've got to be comfortable with going, oh, that didn't hit the nail. But you've also got to be comfortable about not thinking about your campaign as a personal failure, because it's not. You can never assume what your customers want or need at the time that they need it. So everything that you're doing has to be fluid. And so, yeah, I really like that suggestion of keeping yourself open this year. We're still at the first quarter of this year, so I want to pull on your knowledge as well in the industry. What do you think the big trends are going to be? Do you think that a lot of our time and effort is going to be spent around seasonal things this year, or do you think it's definitely going to be digging into the data and doubling down on your tech?
A good question. So I think what we are, because as you say, we're still in Q1, we're still in January.
We're at the end of quarter one, but yeah, we're still in January.
No, so we're fully in the sort of planning and getting everything lined up for the calendar year and then ultimately the next financial year as well. And again, like, the seasonal piece does have a massive part to play. Like I mentioned, the Valentine's, the dine-in, it's those sort of standout moments that from a not just affiliate marketing perspective, but a wider marketing perspective, right? It's in your day-to-day life. It's something you look forward to. So I think they absolutely have a place. However, I think if we are talking specifically, you would argue we've never been in a position where, as marketeers, we've got the access to the most amount of data we ever have. And the winners and losers are going to be the people who go on and ultimately use it as effectively as they can, and the ones who don't maybe use it as efficiently as they can.
Yeah, I really do believe that data is going to be the thing that drives success this year, because one, we are at a point where we are transparent with it. We can get the data out of our partners, out of our networks, out of our tracking solutions, and also internally with backends. I still see a lot of clients that don't have business intelligence plugged into their business. They're still using basic tools like Google Analytics. And we're talking like clients that are spending millions a year in terms of advertising, which just beggars belief, because you cannot be competitive in a competitive space if you are not looking at your data and actually implementing strategies that filter and use that data. If I can round off our episode, because you've given a lot of insight in terms to consumer behavior, and you've spoken about how brands should be thinking about leveraging partners throughout the funnel as well. What is the one piece of advice that you would want to give to advertisers this year that want to scale?
Again, without making a massive Zilch ad, but intelligent commerce, everyone. I think it's the flexibility piece. I think is, let's make a plan for maybe not each and every advertiser, but if you want the cross category, make a plan for what you want those publishers to do. And then from that point on, go on and make sure that you're working with the ones that can deliver it for you.
Yeah. So be selective, basically, this year. Be a little bit selective. Focus on quality rather than quantity this year, and really dig deep into the partnerships that you already have. Because as you said, Zilch can be used in so many different ways in e-commerce and FMCG brands as well. I think that's quite a lot packed into one episode. So I really appreciate you coming on the podcast this week.
No, thank you very much for having me, Leanne. It's been a long time listener, first time caller, as it were. So
brilliant. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast this week, Phil.
Join thousands of digital marketers who trust Affyverse for the latest trends, tools, and tactics shaping affiliate success. Subscribe for free to our weekly newsletter and get expert insights from industry leaders, exclusive case studies and strategy tips, early bird invites to live and virtual events. You cannot afford to miss this. Don't fall behind. Get the news, strategy, and trends that keep your affiliate game sharp. Sign up now at affyversemedia.com and stay connected, informed, and ahead. Thanks for tuning in to the Affiliate Marketing Podcast, your insider edge to all things affiliate.